So yeah, I missed the snapshot earlier in the day, but in fairness, when they said soon we'll be rolling out features seen in Minecraft Live, I didn't think they meant in 3 days we'll have the crafter. But we have the crafter in the new snapshot. This is the crafting recipe for the crafter. There is a world in which I suppose you could have a crafter that is making crafters if you really wanted to. But it's here. Make sure to like the video for a pretty nifty new block. And let me tell you about it. So it has a really simple interface, right? And a lot of the technical elements actually end up happening outside of the block itself. But here we have a crafting grid, essentially, and a redstone looking arrow that points to the output. Now, if we go in here and we take some oak logs out, if I just put the oak logs in, it shows me a preview of the recipe as if I was going to be making it in a normal crafting table, but I can't actually grab the planks out from the other side. The way that you cause the recipe to actually take place is by inputting a redstone signal. Now, that's not pareidolia. I don't know what it is. Looks like we just added a little nose to it. So if I activate this, boom, out pops the oak planks that we get from the recipe with the oak logs. Now, this thing can also obviously hold an inventory, as you probably saw during Minecraft Live. So if I just throw all the oak logs in there and then I click the button, it'll just keep doing a new recipe each time that I do it. And I can click it until it runs out of the oak logs in the queue, and then I'll have to refill it again somehow and click the button some more. I hope you don't mind that I keep booping your nose. Obviously, as you would expect from something about automation, you don't have to manually place the items into it. You can also use things like hoppers and droppers. So if we put a hopper on top, I'm going to add a few oak logs to it. And you'll notice the way that it starts to fill actually is it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It starts to fill all the slots one at a time until it gets through them all, and then it will loop back around to the beginning doing the same thing over and over. But it's not directional. So I could put the hopper from this side and it's still always going to fill that top left spot first. No matter what side I choose to put the hopper on here, when I put the first item in, it's always going to go to the top left. So anyway, just keep that in mind. We can also use a dropper. If I say put that in there and then I activate here, we can put a log in, another log in. So if you want to just be able to activate it one at a time with a redstone pulse, then you can insert items that way. Obviously, you can lock hoppers on and off with redstone signals as well, but it's always going to start up there unless, of course, you go and disable a slot. So with that, why don't we up the level of technicality just a little bit? Because you're looking at this right now and you're like, wow, that's really cool, man. You're taking logs and turning them to planks with every button click. It'd be way faster if I just shift clicked them. Okay, so let's take the planks that we've now gotten at the output and you're like, okay, well, I want to further refine these into sticks. How would I do that? Because if I took 2 planks here and I put them into the hopper, well, that's going to make a pressure plate because this is a shaped crafting recipe. I want sticks, not a pressure plate. So how am I going to do that? So that, of course, is where the disabling slots comes in, so you can outline the recipe you want to have. But that's not all I want to do, right? I could just arrange them like sticks, but then every time I want to do the recipe, I still have to boop the nose, and that's tedious and manual. I don't want to have to do things manually. That's terrible. I'd rather sit back and relax as the sticks come to me. So how do I do that? Well, that's where comparators come in, and boy, are they a critical part of the crafter. So watch the signal out of the side here, right? Currently, there's nothing because there's nothing in here and I have no slots disabled. When I add an item, you'll notice that, boom, we've got a signal in one of the redstone out there. Not just when I add an item, though. Also, if I disable the slot, it acts to a comparator the same way as an item being added. So watch, a new item gives the next level of signal over there, or a disabled slot. It does the same thing. So in our case here, if we want to automate the sticks as the planks are flowing in from the hopper, we're going to want to disable 7 of the slots, whichever one you want to have the sticks coming into, or the planks flowing into to make sticks. Now, as we've done this, that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 far on the redstone signal. And now the way I have this wired up is we have 2 additional spaces here before it feeds into the repeater and cycles back into the crafter. So if I add 1 oak plank, it's going to add 1 more. We've still got an empty space. So I add my next oak plank, triggers that repeater, cycles back into the crafter, completes the recipe, and we've got extra sticks. So I now throw the planks into here, and every time that it populates the fields, it triggers the repeater and causes the crafting recipe to complete. And of course, if we wanted to, we could add a chest there, and it can fill the chest. It'll just go directly into it as if it was a dropper up against a chest next to it. So that would be how we would automate, assuming a constant supply of planks, making sticks. So, this is all fine and dandy if the recipe you're trying to automate is a single... I swear, it started a thunderstorm in between my takes, and this happens. God, this is what it feels like, that fire, when you start to move from a single item input recipe into multiple item inputs, potentially with starting and stopping input from farms collecting resources. Even if you have something like, let's say TNT, right? We've got sand and we've got gunpowder. As long as you're predicting a constant flow of items, it's actually not as bad as it could be, because we unlock this and the hoppers are just going to alternate, and well, look at that. There we go. We've got some TNT. Isn't that great? But then let's say, well, the flow of the sand coming in is going to be different than the flow of the gunpowder, and how do we account for that? So let me move you into, before it got well above my pay grade, something that I was able to work out here for a hypothetical scenario. So let's say that you wanted to automate the crafting of fireworks, which is actually kind of a reasonable thing to accomplish now that the crafters have been added. So on one hand, you'd have a sugarcane farm. Okay, so this chest here with the sugarcane on it represents wherever your output of your sugarcane farm would go into. Over here, we have a chest for gunpowder. This is whatever your creeper farm, this is where the output of that would eventually end up, is in this chest. So we can kind of piecemeal this together one at a time and show you how we would get to the output, which would be fireworks down here in this chest. So from farmable resources to fireworks, it's 2 steps of crafting recipes, right? And you're going to have to forgive me because this is going to look slightly different than it did a few moments ago in the last cut. And that's because I just had to do a little tweak. It's very finicky and it's also midnight. Just don't worry about it. We have to take the sugarcane and we have to turn it into paper. And then we have to take the paper, combine it with the gunpowder, and then get fireworks as the output. So let's start with the easy step, which is the sugarcane. Works very similarly to the sticks over there because, again, it's just a single item type. So let's grab ourselves some sugarcane and pretend that our sugarcane farm had just, output a stack of sugarcane. This would obviously happen, over time as the sugarcane comes in, but it fills in the first 3 slots. So 1 slot, 2, 3 activates the repeater, which pulses to the crafter, triggering the recipe to craft, and then that's just outputting directly into this item hopper here as an inventory. But the hopper isn't passing through any further because that's where the steps get really a little bit more complicated with doing the fireworks. So right now, this signal here is preventing the hopper from passing through any items. So we have the full stack completed. 1 remainder is not going to do anything until 2 more sugarcane flow in, and then it would, produce a little bit more paper. But the difficulty we have to overcome in truly automating something like this is that most of the time, we're going to be sitting with items in one chest, say paper here from the sugarcane farm, and we're going to be waiting for a creeper to spawn in and run away from a cat and provide some gunpowder. And that's where all of this wiring comes in. So let me grab some gunpowder and let's say, okay, a creeper has finally run away from a cat and splatted. Here's a gunpowder. Now we watch the redstone flickers, and lo and behold, we do have some fireworks as a result, and let me tell you why. And not only do we have the fireworks, but the crafter is empty again in its baseline state, and it's awaiting more gunpowder. So if I, again, throw another gunpowder in there, it's going to craft another instance of fireworks, and there we have it, 6 fireworks now. And just, again, to pay attention to how the redstone operates as this is going, I'll try to walk you through it. It's just, I can't really necessarily talk it through at the speed that it's happening. So anyway, right now, with nothing inside of the crafter, the comparator is not going to have any output. That enables our redstone torch here to stay activated, preventing any paper from passing through into the crafter. At the same time, though, this hopper from the chest with gunpowder is not restricted. So any gunpowder that I pass in is going to be allowed to go in. However, as soon as that gunpowder enters the crafter, that is then going to have the comparator outputting 1 signal strength of redstone, which puts a signal into both of these repeaters here, right? On one side, that repeater feeds into the gunpowder hopper, locking it so that no further gunpowder enter, mucking up the recipe. On the other side, when I put in the gunpowder here, it disables that torch for just a moment before this torch over here picks up the slack, only allowing 1 paper to pass through into the crafter right here. And then once that paper is passed into the crafter, that comparator is going to output to the 2nd level of redstone signal strength, which is then going to feed into this repeater, passing around the signal back over into the crafter, triggering the recipe to output and produce our fireworks. The one little secret here to this system is that I might have made it under the assumption that you're probably always going to be generating more sugarcane than you are generating gunpowder. So this is the chest that's probably going to end up empty more often than not, I am ashamed to admit at the moment, but because it is midnight when I'm faced with the issue that if this is empty with the gunpowder supply, it will have trouble reinitiating. There is probably a way to tackle this, and it lies with this thing here, this being the system to pass through the paper. There's a better way to do this, most definitely, but it's late. So that's my current excuse. That said, I think my assumption you'll always have more sugarcane is probably accurate for a situation like this. So that said, let me pop in the gunpowder, and you can watch as it progresses through and just repeatedly makes fireworks as long as we, have the paper. So you'll see as in the intermediate between this disabling and that also still being disabled, there's a little brief moment. That's when the paper feeds in. And then, once the gunpowder is in, though, this is locked. It's not feeding in anymore. It waits for the paper. Once the paper is in, this repeater triggers, and then crafter initiates, and it feeds the fireworks into the chest. So, and this, I should say, is like the very, very low end of how complex things can get when you're dealing with multiple item input recipes. The Holy Grail might be, something like cake, which could be done, but is not something I felt I had in me to manage right at this very moment. But as with anything, right, I can tell you the basics of turning redstone on and off, but somebody is going to take that on and off and they're going to use it to build a computer. And in the same way here, I can tell you the basics of, hey, you can enable and disable slots, and this is how it interacts with the comparator. And someone is going to take that and then they're going to develop the way to bake cakes automatically. The Holy Grail. Or so, as far as my limited capacity can see it. At past midnight now. Did I mention the part where you can angle it in different directions, up, down, left, right, so on and so forth? It always likes to face you. I think I might have overlooked it, but now you know. Thanks for watching. I really look forward to seeing what people create. I hope you've enjoyed. Like the vid and subscribe to stay tuned for more snapshots, and I'll see you then.